many animal lovers do we have in the audience tonight? You know, I've loved animals just as long as I can remember. Fish, cats, horses, ladybugs, it didn't matter. I always knew that I would dedicate my life to taking care of animals in one way or another. And I still identify myself as an animal person. Starting out in this business, I thought most people were pro-nature and that all I needed to do was teach them about conservation issues and they would take care of wildlife, right? Well, it's not that easy now. Kids aren't connected to nature the way many of us were years ago. So I'm not sure anymore that the future for wildlife is guaranteed. The Cleveland Metro Park Zoo is addressing the issues threatening animals in the wild, but we really need help protecting the fewer than 500 Amur tigers and 4,500 gorillas left on the earth. The responsibility is all of ours to protect wildlife for future generations. My job is to save animals. I don't do it by feeding them. I don't even do it by studying them in the wild. My job is to make sure that there are more of us. My job is to help our kids become adults who feel connected to nature and actively protect a future for wild animals. How do I do that? By working with kids to develop a conservation identity. It starts at the most basic level with a class or a camp or an overnight program. Sometimes it starts with a 6-year-old boy just getting jazzed about some goat poop or elephant poop at the zoo. You never know. What if all children were like Elliot, though, who started off at 2 and visited the zoo with his family through a preschool safari program? He was able, at that early age, to compare how different animals felt, and he formed an early connection with furry and scaly animals. If Elliot's going to grow up to care about animals, vote for candidates who value the environment, or become a scientist that cures diseases that plagues animals like giraffes in the wild, research says that he should think of himself as a conservationist or an animal lover. But where will children like Elliot get that opportunity to form such a conservation identity? You got it, by growing up with us here at the zoo. At first, kids could form bonds with animals by going through our summer day camp program, starting at age 3 and going to 14, and then we added more. We now provide programs for all audiences. Chris and the rest of his 5th grade class studied African elephants by watching how they spend their time, what they eat, and again, even how much they poop. And while he learns more about the zoo elephants, he really begins to care about them. He gets attached to Willie or Martika, and then he can't even fathom a world without elephants. He begins to imagine what role he might play in stopping the illegal killing of these majestic animals, killing that is done just so the Chinese or the Americans can display ivory trinkets on their coffee table. And then there's Grace, who hit middle school and started to think she might want to go to college and work with animals. Well, she can come to the zoo and get a taste of what our veterinarians do. Here she learns that some of the treatments developed by zoo vets may be useful in helping gorillas in their wild homes of Africa. You see, Cleveland Metro Park Zoo is a global leader in gorilla conservation. In fact, as we speak, Dr. Kristen Lucas, our Director of Conservation and Research, is at the University of Rwanda with two case grad students. They're teaching the Rwandans conservation and research techniques. And Dr. Lucas started off loving animals just like this young guy right here in Cleveland. She grew up in Menor, formed attachments with nature and animals, and chose to study comparative psychology, a field that focuses on primate behavior. She is dedicated to making sure that gorillas have the best lives possible, both in zoos and in their wild homes of Africa. You know, they say that by the 8th grade, if a young person gets turned on to science or decides he may want to work with an animal-related field, he needs to have access to the advanced opportunities that will keep him motivated, excited, and also at the same time prepare him for college. That's where our Teen Zoo Crew program comes into play. We interview a bunch and choose 100 a year, hungry to learn more about animals and, more importantly, hungry to teach what they learn. I've been so impressed with the differences our teens have made when they focus on an issue that they really care about. By this age, our kids identify as stewards or conservationists. 2 years ago, a team decided to find out if local swimmers' use of sunblock negatively affected Lake Erie. They regularly sampled the water and even presented their results at Bowling Green State University. As it turned out, they learned that their other items could be found more easily in the lake than the titanium or the zinc that they were looking for from the sunscreen. But regardless, these kids were super motivated, and they're going to end up doing some really, really great things. Emma might go on to be a doctor or a zoo director, just like our own Chris Kuhar. Or Mason might end up like Anna Nakaris, an amazing person who founded the group Little Fireface Project. It's an organization dedicated to stopping the capture of slow loris in Southeast Asia for the pet trade. Or, they may go completely different and choose a whole different field, but spend their free time at the zoo like Jim Baguki, introducing the next generation to the amazing, comforting, and awe-inspiring beauty of nature. Me? Well, I chose conservation education as a career, and I've never ever regretted it. I mean, every day I get to come to work at a zoo. My goal is to inspire the 1.2 million visitors to come to the zoo each year. My job is to save animals. They need our help. Are you with me?